to another episode, the Career and Growth series by the Yakha Initiative. I hope you've been enjoying what we've been pushing out so far. So today we have a special guest in the medical field, but she is not your regular. I would allow her to introduce herself.
Okay, thank you so much. So my name is Dr. Anita Mudiaga. She says I'm not regular. But yes, I practiced as a regular clinician for a bit, and then I decided, or not necessarily decided, I saw the problem with the healthcare systems. If you've ever used healthcare, not just in Nigeria, actually, all over the world, there are problems with processes, with operations. And, sometimes because they say doctors are just, health thinking, we don't sometimes think outside of just delivering healthcare, how to fix the problems around the system. And so that's what got me interested in every other solution. So global health and then health tech, just looking for a way to help the healthcare system get better or get health to people that actually need it better than how we do it now. And so that was my entire journey into health tech and into global health generally.
Great, you're already getting into my first question, but that's fine. Can you let us know what first sparked your interest
Okay.
in healthcare and technology?
Boredom, actually. To be quite honest. So I'm the type of person that when I learn something and after a while I get bored with things easily. I feel like that's bragging a bit. But when I was in school, in my fifth year, and there's a lot of repetition in clinical school. You have to, that's how you learn anyway. You do the same thing over and over again. So I was getting bored. And so I said, okay, I wanted to learn something. I happen to have developers around me. My brothers are programmers. So I picked up a laptop and I learned how to code. I learned Python. And then I just learned it for fun. They were all asking me, what are you doing? And I was like, I just wanted to learn it for fun. And so I learned it for fun. And then over the years, while I started practicing, there was a time I did a project I partnered with Google while I was serving, doing my youth service. And I was like, okay, this is lovely. It was just a random meetup in service. I was trying to avoid, the youth service, the community work. I was trying to avoid doing community work. So Google came in and I was like, you know what, this seems like an easier thing to do than do CDS outside. And so I did the CDS for Google and it turned out to be a beautiful collaboration. And I was like, okay, this seems like something interesting. It was out of healthcare, but it sparked like an interest in finding a common ground between like the two interests that I had. And so that's what actually started it. I did a community project for Google where we helped register businesses in Lagos. So like I said, it was out of healthcare. I was just helping register small businesses in Lagos on Google. And then we did some other smaller projects for my CDS project in the 36 states of Nigeria that was used in the 36 states. But just doing that just showed me, okay, and I was leading the team. So doing that, I was one of the leaders. So doing that just made me feel like, oh, I could actually pull people together, build a solution. It just sparked an interest. I took on another project. I made like my first large sum of money. So I was like, oh my God, there's an opportunity here. So what I decided was, okay, so I'm in healthcare. I'm seeing problems. I have this other side hobby that looks very interesting. How do I bring the two together? And that's how
So you see the
I
reason
got
why I
into
said she's not your regular, right? From learning Python, right? And what you have to do. So it's really interesting. So clearly your work connects healthcare with digital innovation. I
Yes, it
just
does.
really want to know what excites you the most about this.
What's exciting now is everything that is happening currently with AI and with innovation.
Awesome.
So healthcare is usually the like last place that technology innovation shakes, and that's understandably because I mean it's life and death. So usually when technology is shaking the world, it doesn't touch healthcare as much because we have to be very careful what we let in. So, for example, you have fintech, finance, and technology has gotten into the space, has changed a lot of things. You have agriculture, technology has gotten. So, healthcare used to be like adoption used to be slow, but over the last few years, we've seen a very rapid. COVID also helped.
Yes.
It's made the growth like very fast, and so lots of people there's a lot of uptake. But just with AI, we're seeing experiments like massive experiments. Last week, I was watching a robotic surgery that was done in the UK on a patient in India. and the
Wow.
patient was in India, and the doctor was in India, and another doctor was in UK, and the doctor was performing the surgery, and there was no delay. It was real time. So my point is, there's so much that can be done. But what is actually most interesting, because I am in the global health space right now, and so I'm more particular about, development, what's happening in the developing world, and the fact that we can bridge the gap between what's happening in the developed world and in the developing world, how we can use technology to bridge that gap, because there's always been a huge gap between the type of healthcare delivery system we have in developed world and in the developing world. But right now, with technology, we can find a way to get in the middle. We can find a way to get into the system so we are not left behind. Because technology is sort of a leveler. We can use the same technology they are using. So it's sort of a leveler. And so what's the most interesting thing to me to see is that developing countries and countries in Africa can, can get into the space, can start to innovate, can use this technology to improve healthcare systems so that we are at par.
Okay, so what's most exciting is the fact that developing countries in Africa can
Yes.
make use of technology. So
Yes.
through your work with Wellness Wits,
Okay.
you are able to help people manage chronic diseases remotely.
Yes.
Please talk to us about it.
Okay, so what I did for Wellness It, or what we're doing, was to do group therapeutics. So we're doing, people with diabetes, people with hypertension. What actually sparked that technology was, my the founder of the company is in Nigerian, but she was in the US, and she had a condition, and she was looking for a solution. The doctors had advised the surgery. She did not want to do the surgery. I don't want to get into the details, but the surgery would have resulted in continuous medication use for the rest of her life.
Wow.
And she knew that because she's a doctor too. So she was looking for alternatives. And she went on Facebook and she found a Facebook group. And there were 1 million people on that Facebook group. No doctor, no health professionals. They were just discussing things that worked for them. And somebody would say, oh, I tried this, I tried that, I tried that. And she was like, oh, wait, is this possible? And, she decided, okay, let me go and find out a way to actually structure this, build this as a technology. And she got funding for it. And just like that, a solution came up that we know would people with chronic condition can come together in small clusters, but managed by a health professional, and they can discuss, and the health professional can manage their care. So what it did, especially like I said, healthcare system problem is not here, it's everywhere in the world. So even in the US, there's a shortage of health professional. It's worse here, but there's still a shortage. So in dealing with that such shortage, you can now have like 15 patients to one doctor being managed at the same time. So it's helping with the shortage crisis.
Awesome, amazing. So now let's take it to, because a lot of the people that watch what we do are students.
Yes.
So students that are interested in healthcare,
Okay.
but also interested in technology, like to know like what opportunities exist with respect to intersection in both fields.
Okay, I think there's a sweet spot now. This is the perfect time. When I was starting out, I think it was a little confusing. Just like I said, a lot of people were asking me, what are you doing? Do you want to leave this? Do you want to?
Yeah.
And even I did not know what I was doing, to be very honest. I did not know what I wanted to do. I was just like, these tech people are making money. I want to make money too. This is boring. And, and so I think they are coming in at a very important time where we can actually see like a path. There's like a path to growth. There are courses now that are digital health specific, biotechnology specific, even in some Nigerian schools. So there's already a pathway. However, even before you go to that pathway, if you're interested in healthcare, take your healthcare course, but stay abreast with knowledge. The truth is, what I learned about AI, say 5 years ago, is way different from what's happening now. So
AI 5 years ago.
exactly, yes, I did. I
Great.
took, funny enough, the first course I took on AI was about 5 years ago. I didn't even know what it was. People were not as interested in it then, but there were some
Definitely.
people who were already talking about it. So it won't be different. Like, it will be very different from the next 5 years, what you're going to learn today. So you have to be a student of life. Like, and the thing is, I used to say that this generation, we have sort of an advantage that could also be a disadvantage because there's knowledge everywhere. The fact that there's information everywhere makes us like a little relaxed. You know, in the previous generation, they probably had to go to a library. I'm sure most people don't even know what a physical library looks like again.
Yeah.
But because information is available at our fingertips, sometimes we take it for granted. But now you have YouTube videos everywhere. There's almost nothing you want to learn that you would not see like a course. Look for free courses, look for I remember then I used to take Coursera. I used to apply for Coursera scholarships like a crazy person, and I used to get all of them because it was they are partial to people from this region. So look for those type of courses, take courses because whatever you're learning now in the next 2 years might be obsolete. So keep your healthcare track, do as much as you can there, but also figure out a way to keep abreast with what's happening in technology, then you can find a way. I used to do a training, and what I used to tell people was, look at the problems that exist. Like, if you're already in the system, you are the best person to solve your problem. I used to hate that we used to have to wait for, people outside to come and solve our problem, to build systems for us, build solutions. And if you check some of the solutions, even in the fintech space, in the health tech space, you would find out that sometimes, even though they are built by Nigerians, they are Nigerians that have traveled out and then come back. Sometimes the solutions that they try to build, you can tell when this person does not understand the system well enough. So if you're already here, you're already in the health school, you've used Nigerian hospitals all your life, you know exactly where the problems are. You're probably practicing in a Nigerian hospital, or you are going to school in Nigeria. Your parent has probably gone to the hospital and suffered because a doctor did not do something, or suffered because you guys did not have enough information. So you know the problem more than anybody. Start from there. Start to think of, how can I fix this problem? Whether with technology or not, just start to think problem wise. This is a problem, how do we fix it? That's how to think, even in technology. Like, this is a problem, how do I fix it? That's how you start solving solution. Don't just think, oh, I want to learn technology. Think, okay, this is a problem, can technology fix it? If so, what can we do? That's how you start to build solutions.
Awesome. So three things I'm taking from what you said. First, you mentioned keep your health care track,
Yes.
take courses,
Yes.
and then the third thing you said, you know the problem more than anyone else.
Exactly.
So you should take advantage of that. I
Yes.
think that is awesome. So, what's can you tell us about maybe one of the most meaningful moments so far in your career where you felt you're truly solving a problem or truly making an impact? Just, I know there might be several, but just point
Yes,
out one.
there are several. However, I think maybe because I enjoy teaching, or I enjoy, like I said, I started with my founder. We started like a training for Africa students, so Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, and so we had like medical schools and University of Ghana, actually medical students from there, and we had some students from Nigeria as well. And we're taking them on some training, just like the same thing I say
Is
here,
that the
just
DigiHive network?
no, it
Okay,
was
so we'll
another
talk about
training.
that.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
So we did this. It was called Technovate, and we were doing this training, repeated cohorts. And one of the most interesting thing that I got, it was just a 6 week thing. It's usually just a cohort of 6 weeks. But what's one thing that was repeatedly like we repeatedly saw, right, was that these people could, fix little problems. We had people who came up in just 6 weeks who could think about problems, just the same way I was saying think about problems. That's the way I used to hammer it. And before we now start equipping them with technical skills, we used to just get them hungry enough to see that, oh, you can fix the problem. And just that eye-opening thing to say, okay, oh, I can actually, there's this problem. I remember that there was this person, it turns out she even stays close to where I stay in Ojodu, but we met, but it was just that program that we met, or I have never still seen her physically. And she was like, she went to the hospital. She was telling the story about her child. She had the personal experience when she went to give birth. She had no information. I think she lost that baby. And so the solution that she started to build was, something that could address misinformation with maternal health. And that touched me because I know how much maternal health is a problem in Nigeria, how much maternal health is a problem in the entire Africa. But from her own personal experience, she already knew what she would have liked to have as a patient. And so the solution she's building now is is a solution that addresses the issues that she faced. And because she now has the skills to build that solution, she's doing it with the other people in her cohort. So that's like the most impressive thing that I've experienced. Like people who have experienced little thing, and the same thing we had with people in Ghana. The issues that they faced in their own healthcare system, they could see it, point it out, and say, okay, can we build a solution? Can we do something? Can we come together and can we? And that was just impressive because I'm always like, solve your own problem, figure it out. Recently, we've had funding moved out of Africa health systems, and it was a big deal in Africa because everybody is scrambling to say, oh, they're shutting down, maybe the US doesn't want to fund us again, they're shutting down some of the global health initiatives that we used to have. What do we do? And my solution was always, we have to figure out a way to start solving our problems. So seeing these little pockets from just that small cohort and that small class made me very optimistic of what is possible.
It is very, very, very obvious that you've talked about several trainings and all that. So much that I even thought it was the DigiHive network. So it's obvious that is something that you are passionate about.
Yes.
So let's talk about the DigiHive network.
Okay.
Where you help professionals. So what happened?
Okay. So that started again, like I said, I do like teaching. So every small opportunity I have, I do like to give back. But that started also. So let's draw back to the LYC thing and me avoiding responsibilities. While I was in the camp, I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to. So we used to do like a year of internship before we go for LYC, and we're already working, we're already earning money as doctors. So you don't want to actually go and start climbing rope. And then, so I was looking for a way to avoid the entire process, like I said. And so I found this CDS group that, they said we'll be meeting online. I said, perfect. This the CDS, this is what I want to do. And so that was the CDS that got the partnership with Google and all of that. And I happened to be the vice president there. Even that, I stumbled upon the vice president. I just got to their first meeting. They just said that they are waiting for me. I was like, what? And then it turned out that there were people who knew me from school that were there, and I just ended up being vice president. But okay, I had the responsibility to lead, and then we ended up building something together. So when we're done with NYSC, like I said, we built something. We loved the team. We were just a group of like very motivated young people that came together to build something, and most of them were in the tech space. Some of them were just learning, some of them we grew together. We started taking contracts together. Like I said, I got a contract, I called all of them together, we built something else, we got money from it, and so we just became good friends. We went to secondary schools to tell young people, because we're just like, you know what, we can actually, the community work that we're running away from, we ended up doing it by ourselves. We went to secondary schools to just tell them how they can get into STEM, because we're all young people and we're all thriving. So we're like, okay, how can we give back? How can we figure out a way? So that brought us together. NYC brought us together, and then we formed an organization. So from there, we started building. We started with secondary school students. We still do some projects in secondary school, but because people in the university have more freedom or more. They have more time to be able to learn and more freedom to be able to get devices and learn. That's how the community started anyway, long story. But yes, now what we do is that we provide mentorship for people who want to get into different tech tracks. Just like I said, we have software developers, we have product designers who are now everywhere in the world. Some are in the US, some are in the UK, but everybody is still committed to the same thing that brought us together to help people. So right now what we do is that we bring young people in this track, and then we first train them for a bit, we do a boot camp, and then we attach them to somebody who is already like middle level career, and then we help them. We give them a mentorship session for like 3 months or 6 months, depending on the track, and then we let them go.
Just stemming from the last question.
Okay.
What skills should young people start developing now to take advantage of the digital economy?
Okay, I think the first skill is curiosity, honestly, and I think curiosity is a skill. Just like I said, I said I was bored, but it's also a thing that you have to be comfortable being bored. And I have to give like a background to that. You have to be okay being bored. Today, most people don't want to be bored. You're always trying to fill your head with different things. So once there's a space, you want to use your device to go on Instagram and get distracted. So there's always like something distracting us, and so we're not bored enough. That's a long TED talk, but you have to get bored. You have to get tired, you have to get bored with things. And so enough that you can focus on something else for a very long time. And so I think curiosity is a skill you can build. Be curious about everything. Why does this work? Why is this here? And that's a skill that I think we are losing. So if not to sound like a old grumpy auntie, but get curious, right? Get curious about how things work. Whatever it is you find, whatever solution you think is interesting, how does it work? If I see an app, even before I was ever interested or in tech, when they tell me these people, I'll say how do they make money. Like that was like, okay, I like money too. So if this is a solution and it was built, how are they making money, right? And remember that when I first said about Uber, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, okay, how is the company making money? And I went into a deep dive. You would think that they gave me school assignments. I studied Uber's operation. And if you know a solution like Uber, it has been replicated in so many other tech solutions. So imagine if you understand how businesses are built, you can replicate it. It's not obvious, it's not going to be a transport business, but you can replicate the model. So yes, for a young person, stay curious. I was saying information is available. So if you're curious, you're going to find it. You're going to find knowledge. You're going to find everything you need. But the first thing you have to build is your curiosity.
Awesome. Curiosity.
Yes.
So looking back at your younger self, is there anything you wish you had
Mm.
done? Let's just
Let me think. Anything I wish I had done would be to maybe be comfortable speaking about, I'm still getting better at it actually. Be comfortable speaking up, be comfortable speaking about my abilities. So usually I'm the type of person in class that I was the teacher's pet, but even then I hated that label so much that I would not want to speak up in class. I would tell my answer. My seat partners were always awesome. If I knew the answer in class, I'll tell them, and then they'll say the answer in class, and everybody will be clapping for them, and we'll just have fun. So instead of getting up to say the answer in class, just because I don't like that label of teacher's pet, I don't like everybody to say, yeah, just always know it all. I would rather, give the answer to somebody else. And I didn't know that I was kind of like building that muscle, such that even when I was in uni, it's probably when the results come out that they'll be like, who is this person? Like nobody knew me in class. Okay, except my friends. Because I stayed a long time in uni, obviously at the end people knew me, but I would just be like the silent person, enter class, stay in the class, leave. But I sort of, it doesn't play well in the real world. You can enjoy it in class, just being that kind of silent agent, 007. You enter, be quiet, you do well in school and you leave. It doesn't play out in the real world well. You need to be able to speak up. You need to be able to, not necessarily brag, but speak about what you can do, right? People give you more opportunities, people give you more room to grow. And I think I learned that when I started working and I saw that playing small is not helping you. Playing small, just keeping quiet is not helping you. You can actually do this. And that's how I started growing in my career. I started speaking up. I said, when I got into it was even a clinical role, I was doing a clinical job. I started speaking up and said, oh, this doesn't work. Can we fix this? And as at that time, people were telling me, oh, the medical director is very strict. Oh, don't say anything. This is how we do it here. Any small thing I was like, why is this not working? Ah, that's how it is. So that's how we've been doing it. I just said, you know what? No. And then I went above and I complained. I was like, no, this thing is not working. Can we change it? And the person was so excited. I was like, oh, I'm so happy you're speaking about it. It's a wonderful suggestion. I was like, what? And so that just made me know that I had to start speaking up. And just like that, it changed my career trajectory. I started growing. I started getting more leadership positions, more opportunity to speak up. I worked with my association then. I was just at an event with them 2 weeks ago. I never would have had that opportunity to speak at the bigger event if I never, suggested smaller solutions. Let's fix this, let's do that. So yes, I wish I was a lot more audacious when I was younger, because I did not get smart when I was older. I've always been the smart person, but nobody, maybe people around me will know. My parents will know that this one is smart. My friends would know. Maybe when my result come out, you would know. But I never was bold enough to like, I was always ashamed of it, like it was something to hide. But yeah, that's what I would have told my younger self. Speak up.
Speaking of, honestly, speaking with you is always insightful. I should say, right? Speaking with you is always
Thank you.
insightful. So, finally, if a student is watching this and wants to be able to create real impact in the world, what advice would you give them? Give him or her.
Okay. Impact would be to care. I think compassion is how you build solutions, and I think whether spiritual, whether spiritual, whether physical solution, whatever it is, if you are not compassionate enough to care about the problem, you can't impact. However, you want to make impact in somebody's life, if you don't start with caring, that's why I was talking about problems, right? Seeing problems and wanting to solve problems. It starts from there. If you want to fix something, if you want to make impact, your driving force has to be something bigger than fame, bigger than money. Those are things that obviously are attached to success, but your driving force has to be first caring about, why do you want to actually do it? Figure out that why, and that why should be rooted in compassion for people. Maybe because in Nigeria, I'm in a developing country, and every day we are confronted with problems that, if people cared enough, could have been fixed. So especially in every facet, whether healthcare, whatever it is, just care enough and let that translate. If you care enough about people, if you are cooking, you will cook better. If you care enough about people, if you are teaching, you will teach better. If you actually saw this person, like imagine you're a teacher and you can see that 10 years from now, this person that is in my class would probably have an opportunity to change the world. If I teach the person well, you will do it better. And so I think that always, caring enough about the person you are trying to make impact, not just the associated results. Oh, they'll pay me my salary at the end of the month. Oh, I'm going to, if I pass this, even as simple as exam, again, not to sound like that grumpy aunt, we do education like we just want to get, just pass it and go. Exactly. But if you actually cared enough that, okay, if I pass this, if I write this exam, this is what I'm going to be able to do. It sounds like a weird thing, but yes, if I get all A's, this is what I might be able to do later in life that will now change somebody's life. That's like seeing 20 steps ahead and caring all through that. So yes, care about what you're doing, care about people, care about people that you want to impact, not just the accompanying things that come with impact. When we see popular people, we say, okay, I want to be like this person. But what you're actually looking at is, I want to have the fame, I want to have the money. When you see that person that you want to be like, say, okay, how much is this person changing? Who is this person helping? I want to have that same level of impact. And you can only get that if you care.
Amazing. Compassion is how you build solutions.
Yes.
That should not be.
Yes.
Awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We're not yet done, though.
Okay.
We're not yet done. We're almost done.
All right.
So we have this.
What's happening?
And you have two questions. I promise you, these questions are not from me. Somebody put the questions together, and I'll have
Should
to
I be
ask
scared?
so you are expected to answer
Yes or no? Okay.
Or no, and then just give us the backstory.
Okay.
So first, have you ever sent a message to the wrong person?
That would be a yes. That would be definitely a yes.
Amazing. So tell us what happened.
Let me think of the most interesting one. It's a good thing I don't gossip. That would have been a terrible solution. Because I have sent messages that are about somebody to the same person. But thankfully, it was not a horrible thing. I was like, oh, this person just said this. And I said to the exact person I was talking about. But thankfully, it wasn't a horrible thing. It would have been it would have been a disaster. But it wasn't bad thing. It was just me sharing an opinion. And the person was like, you're talking to me. And I realized, don't text when you're sleepy. Listen.
Great advice. Awesome. So the second one is this. Do you still do something childish, even if you are older?
Of course.
Okay, so let's see.
Yes.
What's that?
What's the most childish thing I do? I do plenty childish things. I'm sorry, guys. I have, I have plenty. I can't say which is the silliest or funny, but maybe I say the most recent. I don't know if this is childish, but I like to drum, and so if you're playing music around me, I'll probably be hitting something. I used to do that when I was a child, and people used to say, "Stop it," and I still do it.
Wow, amazing. It was really, really good learning about you, seeing all the amazing things that you are doing. And we know, of course, in the future you will do much more. And also,
Thank
listening
you.
to these interesting parts. Right. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode so far. Do well to like, to share, subscribe. If you have questions, please drop a comment.
Thank you.
And compassion is the way you build solutions. Please
Hey.
don't forget that. So let's say bye to the audience.
Bye. Thank you all for having me.